Hello everyone, I'm Peppa and today I'm going to discuss something I have wanted to talk about for months now, around the time that the Stranger Things DLC dropped, in all honesty. So, this has been an idea floating around in my head for a while. As you can probably tell from the title, I want to rework Pig, but before I start talking about the changes I want to implement, I want to thank a very good friend of mine who helped edit and put the video together. That being my friend, No Mither, no problem. Without him, this entire video would not have been possible, so please check out his channel. I've posted a link to it in the description below. I would very much appreciate it if you went and checked out his content, because it's loads better than mine, to be honest. Now, as I'm sure someone wants to know, who is this mysterious Jigsaw character, and what gives him the right to talk about Pig? What proves he knows even anything about this character? I've mained Pig since the Saw DLC first launched on January 23rd, 2018, and she honestly took most of my attention up until the Cursed Legacy chapter, which launched December 3rd of last year. During that time, I wrote a comprehensive and horribly out of date guide for her on Steam, which as of the writing of this script has over 7,000 unique visitors and 177 favorites. That can be found in the description as well if you are curious. I am an administrator for the Steam group titled Pigmains, and for about a year and a half I ran a Discord server called the Disciples of Jigsaw, which was fully dedicated to teaching and learning about Pig. During my time running that server, I even interacted with two major streamers, one of them being Arditha, who actually learned Pig under my wing, and the other being Scorpions, who I am somewhat close with. We haven't discussed anything Pig-related in a while, but we both view each other as equals. Or, we did, back when Pig was the center of my attention. I don't blame him if he doesn't believe that we're equals anymore. I personally see him that he's probably better than I am at Pig currently, because I haven't played Pig in a while. I am extremely rusty, and the gameplay you're seeing in the background is the first time I have actually played Pig for an extended period of time in months. And despite my absence, I'm still somewhat high on the leaderboards for DBD, being ranked currently at 101 for all PC players in the world, which is pretty good considering I haven't touched her in, as I said before, months. But I think I've made my point. I know Pig. I know her extremely well. I am not saying I am the best Pig player, or even the top 10 Pig players in the world. But I am confident that I know Pig better than most people do. So now that you know all my achievements that I have obtained as Pig, let's actually start the discussion on what about her I want changed. Why I want it to be changed. However, I must make a disclaimer. This is, of course, my opinion. I don't expect everyone to agree, and I honestly wouldn't want everyone to. I'd be very impressed if I somehow made everyone agree, but regardless, everyone agreeing means a lack of intellectual debate and the exchanging of ideas. So, without further ado, let's get started. I intend to break Pig's power down into 3 separate parts, while I plan to cover her add-ons in a separate section, because I plan to talk about those as well, don't worry. The 3 parts of her power being stealth, ambush, and the reverse bear traps with the jigsaw boxes. I plan to subsequently go through each part, explaining what I would change and why I feel as if it would be a good change. I would like to state now that I don't believe Pig is bad, that is, when her power functions in a way that benefits you, the player, the killer, the Pig. I will talk about the parts of her power that are inconsistent when I get to them, but my overall opinion of Pig is that Pig is great when she works. My problem is based more on the fact that she doesn't always work. So she is the killer that essentially works 100% of the time, 50% of the time. If she doesn't work, she has a lot of issues, which I plan to address. So I wanted to keep her kit in a way that keeps what made Pig, Pig, instead of completely rewriting her entire power. Because I don't want a complete do-over like what Freddy got. Just certain aspects to change so her problems aren't as hindering or inconsistent as they are within the current game. To start off, let's cover Pig's stealth aspect of her kit. The stealth aspect of Pig's kit is by far my favorite. Gen grabs are something I lived and breathed for back when she first was released. As everyone knows, grabs are currently bugged. They don't function properly. But as this is with all killers, not just Pig, that is something that I'm going to set aside for now. It hurts her, yes, but it isn't an exclusive Pig problem. It's a bug that behavior needs to fix. I hope they fix it soon. My love of her stealth proved to be quite tricky. I wanted to make sure my own personal bias of her stealth didn't lead to an imbalance within her power, in which the stealth aspect made the other two parts completely useless or just extra bits tacked on. That being said, I want to touch on how clunky and odd her crouch feels. Compare Pig's crouch to that of Ghostface. Ghostface has an instant crouch and uncrouch, while Pig has a very slow and wonky feeling animation. This is one of the reasons why everyone ran combat straps before Pig received a crouch speed buff, which reduced her crouch speed from 2 seconds to 1.3 seconds. Even though some people still use combat straps, I did when I was recording the footage playing in the background. My solution to this is simple. Make her crouch instant like that of Ghostface, or make combat straps baseline, where she has a 1 second crouch and uncrouch. Basically, I want her crouch to be streamlined, I want it to be faster, I want it to be less clunky. Think of how the Doctor worked with his shock, whereas before, he had to switch to his shock mode, hit the survivor with the shock, and then switch back mode so he could land a hit. Whereas that was reduced where his shock was always built in. So he could shock, there was a slight delay between the time he could shock again, and then he could hit. Secondly, I wanted to talk about the FOV while crouched. I will be one of the first people to tell you that you shouldn't be constantly crouched unless it's on a map like Gideon's Meatland or Hawkins. But her FOV while crouched is abysmal. This is one of the reasons I ran monitor and views on her as much as I did, because it just made the FOV a tiny bit more bearable. So I believe that we should raise the crouched camera a bit, so that our vision isn't as obscured by a single blade of grass as much anymore. Because if you've played Pig, you know that when you're crouched, and you're going through grass, you are pretty much blind.
Ah, Haddonfield, my favorite map to play. Wait a minute, where the f*** am I?
And, by the way, I hate corn. Just putting that out there. Her movement speed was something else that I originally wanted to change by having it be that her stealth was a lot like Ghostface, where you didn't have to crouch for it to activate and you could toggle it on and off. But I decided that that would be too powerful considering she has two other parts of her power. Instead, I suggest we bump her crouch movement speed up to 95% from the original 90%. Originally, Pig had a crouch movement speed of 93%, however that was changed with the Ghostface update where it was reduced to 90% to be consistent with Ghostface's crouch movement speed. Thank you, behavior. Very cool. This makes her a bit faster, so that she doesn't move as slowly while crouched. Lastly, concerning her stealth, I want Pig to gain deviousness points for scoring a basic attack during her terror radius fade-in. Wraith and Ghostface both have a scoring event for attacking out of stealth. Pig should, in my opinion, have this as well. Actual amounts, I'm not sure. That would be a thing that would need to be tested in the game to find the right balance, the right sweet spot. The next part of her power I wanted to talk about is her ambush, or as I like to call it, Pig's ambush was especially tricky, because in the current state of the game, her ambush should only be used at loops or certain tiles for easy hits. The only problem is, most survivors know how to counter your ambush now. The best thing to do is to simply run away from the tile. This completely negates any threat the Pig has, as it counters and denies the use of her ambush entirely. This is, in my opinion, one of Pig's most glaring issues. Her ambush works, and it works extremely well when used properly, but only when survivors stay at loops, and allow you to even have the chance to attempt an ambush mind game on them. Which gives us the question, why should survivors have any say over when a killer gets to use their power? My answer to that being, they shouldn't. Survivors should never be able to completely deny a killer the use of their power. Well, the Pig could simply uncrouch or bait out the survivor running away to get a hit. Is that really how that should be played out? Is that fun? Why should the ambush be rendered completely useless against survivors who know how to run away from pallets and windows as soon as they see a Pig crouch? To answer these questions, I had a hard time thinking it over, because I wanted the ambush to remain mostly the same, but just to have this single problem removed. I eventually found my answer within another killer that I play quite frequently, this being Demogorgon. Demogorgon's shred attack and Pig's ambush attack are both based on misdirection and forcing survivors to go where you want. Demogorgon is about zoning survivors into a tight area he can hit them with his shred, while Pig is about forcing survivors to think you're going one way while you're instead going the other, so they run right into you. And both of them are very good in the hands of a player who knows how to use it well. But the key difference between them is the fact that Demo forces the survivors to outplay the Demogorgon rather than just simply abandoning the loop, as with Pig. Survivors have to win the mind game against the Demogorgon so that they don't get hit by his shred. But Demo is always in control, and it is up to the Demogorgon player when and where to use their shred. They can pick when they want to shred and in what direction they want to shred. And it's up to the survivor to dodge it or to bait it out. Pig doesn't have that option. Pig is completely at the mercy and choice of the survivors she is facing when it comes to using her ambush. So, what's my answer? How do I fix this problem, where Pig's ambush is at the mercy of the survivors that she is playing against? It's simple. Make her ambush bound to the mouse 2 button, just like Demogorgon's shred. Pig can now ambush whenever she wants, at the cost of being slowed significantly while charging her ambush. The cooldown for missing an ambush would also be greatly increased, so that you cannot spam your ambush around the map for faster mobility, and the survivors would be rewarded for outplaying you. The length and speed of the attack itself is something I'm not sure if I want changed or not. I believe this change alone would fix the survivors running away from loops to deny the use of your power, and making the pallet the more safe option for them, but only if they can win the mind game. That would have to be tested in-game to be sure. Both numbers could be adjusted accordingly, and thankfully we have the PTB for this. Obviously, there would need to be some tell for survivors so they know when the pig is about to ambush. What exactly it could be, I'm not sure. Lion's Roar we hear currently while charging your ambush, it could work, but when it would be played during the charging of the dash, I'm not entirely sure. It might be played at the end when she's done fully charging up her ambush. Either way, I'm not sure. Even with this change that she can now ambush whenever she wants, she would still be able to ambush from her crouched position. So, if you wanted to, you could crouch and then ambush just like normal. She would just also be able to ambush while standing up because of this change. That is my biggest change to the ambush attack. The only other thing I would want for the ambush is for it to be counted as a basic attack again, so that things like exposed and save the best for last affected her dash again. As the change which made her dash not affected by those things really hurt her utility in my opinion. The last part of her power I wanted to talk about was her reverse bear traps and jigsaw boxes. We've all played Pig. We all know the infamous I got the helmet off at the first box argument, and we've all had it happen to us before. Place a trap, hook the survivor, leave them alone, and expect to get some stall out of it. But the survivor gets it off at the first box, which renders 1/4, or 1/5, if you're running last will, of your stall almost useless. This was a problem that can't really be completely solved without just rewriting this part of her power, but I think I managed to come to a conclusion that would make her power better and more consistent, without needing to rewrite and completely change how this part of her power works. My idea for this is rather simple. The first box survivor search will always be a dead box. The survivors have to search at least 2 boxes to get the traps off, meaning that they're better at slowing the game down. Just a little bit. This also forces the survivors to ask themselves a question. Should they pick a box further away from the others to get a hard-to-reach box out of the way first, or do they want to get rid of that first fake box as soon as possible? Live or die, the choice is yours. Speaking of Saw references, the boxes themselves are a bit boring, in my opinion, for a death trap. So to make things a bit more interesting, I would like the skill checks to be changed to be similar to the Doctor's Madness skill checks, being that they now can appear on the screen in random places and can swing counterclockwise instead of clockwise. You are sticking your hands into a box designed by Jigsaw himself, and judging by the design of the boxes themselves, they are based on the 10 pints of sacrifice trap from Saw 5, which had literal saw blades spinning inside of them. They should be somewhat difficult to root around in. The great skill checks from the boxes should also be removed in my opinion, for the simple idea that other killers' powers involving skill checks do not grant bonus progression. Demogorgon's portals don't give bonus progression for hitting skill checks. In fact, they don't even have the option to get great skill checks. Snapping out of it, it's colored as a great skill check, but it doesn't give you any bonus progression for succeeding it. This small change would also give a slight boost to her stall, as it prevents survivors from getting through boxes faster by hitting great skill checks. Which, if you play Survivor any significant amount, you know that hitting a great skill check isn't necessarily hard. Now I would like to talk about her add-ons. Before I start, I would like to refer to a somewhat recent video that was uploaded by Scorpions, which talks about Pig's add-ons and the problems, which, for the most part, I agree with. I plan to put that video in the description as well, so if you are interested in watching, I recommend you pause this and watch that. To summarize it for those who don't want to watch it or have already seen it, certain trap add-ons are really good, a lot of her add-ons are really bad, and only a few are worth using. And a lot of her add-ons are only based on traps, which I promise you are not, guy. I plan to go through each and every add-on, and I plan on discussing how I would change it based on the above power changes, and even certain add-ons that I would just entirely rework. I would completely rework them, completely rebuild them from the ground up. To start off, we have the common add-ons, Workshop Grease. Sound cue that plays before a Jigsaw box skill check is slightly delayed. This is equivalent to 2 tokens on Huntress's Lullaby. It does not stack with Huntress Lullaby. Now, the current Workshop Grease makes it to where skill checks are slightly more likely to appear while searching a Jigsaw box for survivors. I changed Workshop Grease because I wanted it to have a more consistent effect. Because its current effect is inconsistent and it's not always doing something. You know, like there's a chance the survivor could go through a Jigsaw box and they won't get any skill checks. There's a chance they can go through a Jigsaw box and just get 3 skill checks, and that's usually the normal amount. If you search a Jigsaw box, you get between like 3 to 4 skill checks. I decided to go for this option because it forces survivors to view the boxes as more of a threat. It reduces the sound cue that plays before the actual skill check appears, so it forces survivors to pay attention to the Jigsaw box they're doing. And if you think about this with the skill check changes I made, it also makes the boxes a bit more of a threat. Shattered Syringe. That's a Scorpions add-on. He always runs that add-on. I hardly ever see him without that add-on. Not that I blame him for it, of course. I decided to keep Shattered Syringe the same because it's one of the few add-ons I can actually recommend running as it currently is, and even with my changes for the ambush listed above, the numbers might have to be changed a little bit, but it would still do something useful for Pig. It would still do something that benefits her 100% of the time, which is something that I would prefer her add-ons to do. If you run an add-on, if you burn an add-on, it should benefit you 100% of the time. John's Medical File. Now, Scorpions actually doesn't like speed add-ons. I do, because I don't agree with the whole muscle memory thing. I don't really see it as muscle memory because you're looking at a bar filling up, and it's the same distance and speed every time, unless you smack a wall early in your ambush. So I decided to keep Medical File the same. I think it's a good add-on for her, in my opinion. Even with the ambush change, faster charge speed, the numbers might have to be tweaked a bit with Shattered Syringe, depending on how they would make the charge duration for her ambush, whether they kept it the same charge time or didn't. They would probably keep it the same charge time. I think I would keep it the same charge time. I'd have to test it to be sure, like in-game. But as far as I'm concerned, Medical File can stay the same. It's great. Combat straps. This one is tricky because if my crouch change was implemented, then we don't really have a use for straps anymore because we'd have that 1 second crouch, or we'd have that instant crouch anyways. We'd already have a really fast crouch. So I decided that if they did give Pig my idea for the crouch speed, that it would give Pig a slight speed boost of 3% while crouched, which would bring it up to 98% with my change, which is still slower than a running survivor. So you can catch up to survivors while crouched, but you can still move somewhat faster, which makes getting around the map a bit nicer. Utility Blades. What Utility Blades currently does is when you have a trap on a survivor's head, it inflicts them with hemorrhage, which makes it to where they bleed more. Ooh, spooky, right? I changed it to where survivors who are hit by your ambush attack are inflicted with the hemorrhage status effect for 60 seconds. Survivors caught in a reverse bear trap suffer from the hemorrhage status effect until the trap is removed. This change was relatively simple, as I believe that all of her affliction add-ons are hot garbage, not counting slow release toxin, but I find that to be debatable at best. I wanted more add-ons to affect your ambush, and while hemorrhage isn't great, it's a slightly better version than what it was before, because now your ambush does something on hits, as compared to now where none of her add-ons really affect your ambush outside of charge speed and missing an attack. Videotape. Videotape is the better version of File, and it's essentially a File and Syringe put together. It makes it to where you have a faster charging speed and you have a reduced missed attack cooldown for your ambush. I wouldn't change this one either, because the same reason that I wouldn't change File and Syringe. It's one of the few add-ons that doesn't need to be changed in my opinion. It's good, it doesn't need to be changed. I like it how it currently is. Razor Wires does the same thing as Workshop Grease, where it involves skill checks, but with my change it makes the sound that plays before a Jigsaw box skill check moderately delayed, equivalent to 4 tokens on Huntress Lullaby, which also does not stack with Workshop Grease or Huntress Lullaby. This was changed because Razor Wires and Workshop Grease are essentially the same thing with how Pig currently is, and it keeps the pattern that behavior has with add-ons, where yellows are usually a better version of browns, and greens are usually a better version of yellows, and etc, etc. So that's why I decided to have Razor Wire to keep its pattern of being a better Workshop Grease. It's to really fit with that, and I made it not stack because I don't really know how you could do that. I guess you could drop Razor Wires to 3 stacks, and if you stack Razor Wire and Workshop Grease together, it would just completely cut out the audio cue altogether. But I'm not sure I would like that, especially since that's such a big advantage for a yellow and a brown add-on. Last Will is probably one of Pig's better add-ons. I really don't see a reason to change it, to be honest. It's a good add-on. It's another reverse bear trap. Even with my box changes, it's another trap. It's just a good add-on. I don't really see a need for it to be changed. Face mask, what it does currently is survivors with a helmet on cannot see any auras. They're affected by blindness. A lot of people use that in combination with slugging, which I don't personally recommend on Pig at all. I don't think slugging is a strong point for her, and slugging is a very boring playstyle if you ask me, both for killers and for survivors. My change makes it to where upon a failed or cancelled Jigsaw box search, the auras of Jigsaw boxes are hidden for 15 seconds. It removes the want of people to use it for slugging, and it also adds a utility that I think most experienced Pig players could get the use out of. If you pressure boxes, you can make a survivor with a trap on not know where the boxes are, which can waste time and keep your stall and pressure up. So if a survivor is on a box and you're nearby, chasing a survivor or doing whatever, you chase them off the box for a little bit, they run away. For 15 seconds, they don't see the auras of boxes, so they're pretty much running blindly. They don't know where to go, so they could run away from the box that they were working on, and they'd have to look around and regain their positioning, essentially. That's 15 seconds where they could not know where a box is, so it shaves off 15 seconds of that timer for you. Makes your traps a little bit more deadly, makes your stall a little bit better, but I am a little bit concerned that people might abuse that when it comes to tunneling a trapped survivor. I would need to test that to see how effective that would be. I don't think it would be any more effective than what tunneling a trapped survivor is currently, being that Pig is wasting her time and there's pretty much nothing you can do if you're trapped and the Pig is chasing you, except for the fact that you can take the joy of knowing that the Pig wasted a bunch of time tunneling you while everyone else was safe and doing gens while she was not using her stall tools for what it should have been used for. The next add-on is Slow Release Toxin. I did not change Slow Release Toxin at all in the end. What it does currently is survivors with a trap on their head suffer from exhaustion, and it doesn't go away until the trap is removed. I didn't change Slow Release Toxin because it removes exhaustion perks from a survivor's perk pool. Things like Sprint Burst, Life, Dead Hard, Head On, all of those cannot be used while a trap is on their head. which can help Pig if you decide to chase someone with a trap on for whatever reason. If you see an injured survivor with a trap on and you need a bit of pressure, yeah, go ahead, down them. That's the best way of Pig, if you ask me. If they have Dead Hard or Spring Burst, you could, very, very easily negate you that pressure. So slow release toxin in those instances is very, very good. I wouldn't say it's a great add-on because of how situational it is, but I wouldn't necessarily say it's bad either. But either way, I kept it the same. Rusty attachments, what it currently does is survivors with a reverse bear trap on their head suffer from mangled. It takes them longer to be healed, and this lasts until they take the trap off. I changed it to where survivors hit by your ambush attack are inflicted with the mangled status effect for 60 seconds. So you equip this, you essentially have Sloppy Butcher, but only on your ambush attacks. That if you didn't want to run Sloppy Butcher and wanted to opt for another perk, you could run this instead. Additionally, I added if a survivor fails 3 skill checks during a single Jigsaw box search, it drops them to the injured state. Survivors cannot be put into the dying state by failing skill checks. The reason behind me changing this was similar to why I changed utility blades into what I want them to be. More add-ons to affect different parts of her power, and the reason why I added the failing the skill checks effect is because it makes box a bit more of a threat if the survivor is careless, and it could pair well with some other add-ons, something that Pig also really lacks, and a lot of her add-ons just don't work all that well with each other, if you ask me. Jigsaw's annotated plan, I did not change it at all. It still does the same thing, adds 15 seconds to the timer, and it adds another Jigsaw box. I didn't change it. My goal for this rework is to make her traps be a better stall tool, and not to make her traps to be unwinnable against, because it's just unfun for the survivors, and I have to think about survivor fun too, because this is a multiplayer game and there are 2 sides, and if something is broken or overpowered on one side, the other side will not like it. Interlocking Razors. What Interlocking Razors currently does is it tremendously increases the penalty of failed skill checks on Jigsaw boxes. She makes it to where if you fail a skill check on a Jigsaw box, it pretty much reduces the progress of that Jigsaw box all the way down to 0. I kept that effect, and I added another effect where if a survivor fails 3 skill checks during a single Jigsaw box search, they are dropped 1 health state. You can be put into the dying state from this. And the reason why I added that effect is because behavior made it to where unnerving presence no longer affects boxes, and Huntress Lullaby also no longer affects boxes. I kept the old effect because I do really like that old effect, and it could pair well with some of the other add-ons like Workshop Grease and Razor Wire. I know it sounds strong on paper because it can, in theory, down a healthy survivor, but I do ask that you remember it takes you to fail 6 skill checks on that box to go from healthy to the dying state, and this is in a row. It's in one single Jigsaw box search. It is not, you failed 6 skill checks while searching Jigsaw boxes while trying to get your trap up, you're now in the dying state, buddy boy. That is not the case. It would be a single search, so if you get pushed off that box, or you finish that box without failing 6 skill checks, you would not be put into the dying state. If you fail 3 in a single box search, you would still be put into the injured state, or in the dying state if you are injured. But if you were worried about that when it comes to you survivor players, you might want to heal your teammates if you know the Pig is running this version of Interlocking Razors, which promotes player choice. Do you want to waste a little bit of time by healing that survivor, especially if they have the mangled status effect on them, or do you want to let them go immediately and start searching boxes? Choice has always been a necessary ingredient to the games that were played in the Saw movies, so add-ons promoting the survivor choice is something that I would like because it's more in tune with how the games are played in the movies. Next add-on is Bag of Gears. This one I'm not sure about. It is very strong in the current game, especially when it's paired with Timer. I plan on coming back to Bag of Gears after I cover Timer, because Timer is the elephant in the room when it comes to her add-ons. Timer is probably her most controversial add-on, so we'll come back to Bag of Gears later. Jigsaw Sketch. I changed this one. First 2 Jigsaw boxes, Survivor Search, are guaranteed failures. I changed that because I believe stacking 2 additional box add-ons with a slight timer penalty, being 15 seconds for Jigsaw's annotated sketch, I thought that was too powerful. especially with how I changed her traps and her boxes. And this makes it to where you can only have one extra box, that being through annotated plan, while not just making Jigsaw's sketch completely useless. So sketch now makes it to where first 2 Jigsaw boxes are guaranteed to be failures. It's just how it be. Oh boy, Tamper Timer. Timer is definitely the add-on that gets the most hate from people, and I honestly agree. I think it's ridiculously powerful for what it does. Even without more boxes or gear add-ons, it can make getting head pops really easy, especially if you're able to pressure survivors off your boxes really well. So my suggestion for it is to instead make it reduce the timer on the traps by 15 seconds instead of 30. I want timer nerfed. It's a disgustingly good add-on if Pig's RNG is in her favor, and I don't like that, especially not with how I changed her traps and her boxes. The first box being a dud means that the pig only has to patrol less boxes than she does currently, if you want to make that choice. With timer, now you don't have to worry about that dud box, and because you have less boxes to search, you can more easily get survivors off those boxes, which means that head pops are already a lot easier because you don't have as many boxes to patrol if you're keeping track of survivors. So Tamper Timer deserves to be nerfed even in its current state. And even if Pig's power was not changed at all, this would still be my suggestion to nerf timer. Just reduce the amount of time that it shaves off the timer from 30 seconds to 15. Now that we've covered timer, let's go back to Bag of Gears add-on while also covering the Creative Gears in one go, just both gear add-ons. I think that these add-ons are fine with my change to timer and the other box add-ons so far. I think they might need to be tested just to be sure that they don't need adjusting, but overall I'd say the timer change should make them fine. We'd probably have to test it in a PTB to make sure, but that would be my personal take on the gear add-ons after the timer nerf. Next is Amanda's Secret. The current thing for Amanda's Secret is you lose the ability to see your Jigsaw boxes, but survivors who remove a reverse bear trap have their auras revealed for 6 seconds. Yippee! It's, in my opinion, one of the most useless add-ons in the game. It does very little. 6 seconds of aura reading doesn't do a lot, especially if the survivors on the other side of the map from you. Like, oh, you got your trap off. My HUD displayed that. Cool. I changed it to where survivors who are searching a Jigsaw box are revealed through Killer Instinct for 6 seconds. This change is to make this add-on more for information gathering than anything. It tells you if someone is searching a Jigsaw box, but it doesn't tell you who is searching a Jigsaw box. So if you're keeping track of survivors, and you're keeping track of who has what traps and how many boxes they've searched as you see the Killer Instinct go off, you know how many boxes they have left. You should have a good estimate of how much time they have left, and it can tell you when you really should start pressuring a survivor off a Jigsaw box if you want a head pop. And it should also tell you which Jigsaw boxes have been visited by which survivors. This would only be something that a good player would know how to use. It would be very powerful if it is used correctly, but I think it would take a lot of game sense and a lot of game knowledge and understanding to be able to utilize it to its full potential. Now we're on to the iridescent add-ons. First off is rule set number 2. What rule set number 2 currently does is it makes it to where survivors do not see the auras of Jigsaw boxes if the reverse bear trap on their head is inactive. A lot of people want this add-on baseline. I don't, because when a survivor has a trap on, if they're smart and they see the lack of the box auras, you're just going to go back to doing generators. They get unhooked, they look around, and they go, huh, I don't see any box auras, and this trap is not active, so it poses little to no threat to me. So I'm just going to go back to doing gens. Because if a gen is popped while they're on a hook or slugged or whatever, as soon as they get up, they're going to see the box auras anyways. So by that point, rule set is pointless. It does nothing. And if they don't see the auras, even if the generator hasn't been done, they're probably just going to go do a gen and then worry about the trap then. That's just what a smart player would do. That is what I would do. And that is what I recommend you would do if you see a pig is running rule set. I really wish people would stop praising it because in my opinion, it's just a bad add-on. It's really bad. And I would never recommend running it. ever. I changed it to where survivors now must search all the Jigsaw boxes in a trial to get a reverse bear trap off, but this also increases the timer of a reverse bear trap by 30 seconds. So basically, you are completely getting rid of her RNG, but at the cost of your bear traps now last 3 minutes, or 2 minutes and 45 seconds at least if you run timer with this. This could be paired very well with things like annotated plan, and the reason why I added that timer penalty was so it wasn't too strong, because I wanted it to be strong since it is an iridescent add-on, but I didn't want it to be too powerful. I didn't want it to be broken. So that is my reasoning for that. The very last add on it is Amanda's Letter. What Amanda's Letter currently does is while crouched, you see the auras of all survivors within 12 meters, and it reduces the count of your Jigsaw boxes to 2 and your traps to 1. You only have 1 reverse bear trap when using Amanda's Letter. You only have 2 boxes while using Amanda's Letter. And I honestly think that is garbage. Anyone who has talked to me for more than 2 seconds about Pig's add-ons knows that I hate Letter with a passion. I despise Letter. I hate Letter. I think Letter is a awful add-on. The aura reading radius is too small for such a large penalty, being that you just completely gutted most of your stall potential, and that's effectively 1/3 of your power. It has some uses, I'll admit, on maps like Gideon's Meat Plan and Hawkins, but outside of those 2 maps, and maybe Larry's, I don't see the current version being any good in the game. You could argue that it's good for ambush mine games, because when you crouch at a loop, you see where they are, so you can, dash into them. I personally would rather run IMO Ears for that, personally. So, my change to it is, while crouched, you have an increased movement speed of 7%, meaning that if you stack straps and letter, you have a movement speed crouched of 105%, which isn't too fast. Yes, you can outrun survivors, but you have to run 2 add-ons for it, and you're not that much faster than survivors. Yes, you can outrun them in theory, but overall I wouldn't say that it's great. The auras of survivors revealed in your stealth and during an ambush attack. With how current letter works, the aura reading vanishes as soon as Amanda stands up to ambush. So you see where they are while crouched, but as soon as you are in ambush mode, you do not see their auras. In this version, it changes it to where during that ambush attack, you still see their aura, and this occurs in a 20-meter radius. So you have a bigger radius for aura reading. During an ambush, you have wall hacks, so you can see where the survivors are going. And lastly, I made it to where this add-on no longer affects your Jigsaw box and reverse bear trap count. She starts off with the normal count for both unless you are running an add-on that adds a box or adds a trap. So that's everything. That's all of Pig in her entirety. I know Pig isn't a top priority in Behavior's eyes right now. Even to me, I believe other killers like Clown and Legion and Leatherface need more attention than Pig does as of right now. But I really hope that Behavior does take some of my ideas into consideration for Pig eventually, because I really love this killer and I want her issues to be fixed. I don't care if Behavior decides to use any of this without crediting me. I genuinely don't care if Behavior were to copy the entire thing word for word into the game and then not mention me at all. I don't want any recognition for this. That's not my goal here, and it never will be. I just want Pig's issues to be fixed. That's all I personally want. Thank you for listening to me if you've made it this far. I really appreciate it. If you stuck around to the end, that's going to be all from me, guys. I think I'm going to go play some Pig now. See ya.